You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hey there, welcome to episode 249 of the Soul Forge podcast.
Welcome to the Soul Forge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soul Forge.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I am your host Sean, as always, and we're in for excitement and adventure as per usual. This is episode 249, one more before the big 250. Oh boy, what are we going to have to celebrate next week? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. You'll have to tune in again next time to see what kind of crap I'm going to come up with here. So anyway, what are we going to talk about this week? I'm not sure what the title is yet because I haven't come up with something witty and clever. But basically, I'm going to be talking, to start with, some differences between Sault Ste. Marie and Timmins. If this is your first time at the podcast, well, then you might need a little bit of background information. So let's start with that. So I was born and raised here in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada, and lived here until I was about 19. And then I moved to North Bay, Ontario for university, where I acquired myself an English literature degree because that seemed like it would be awful useful in the future. So I lived between North Bay and the Soo for the next, I'd say roughly 7-ish years. And then I moved up to Timmins because of a girl, episode 39 if you're interested. Then I lived in Timmins for the next 19 years and a week. And about 5.5 weeks ago, I moved back here to Sault Ste. Marie. So, basically, what I know is the Soo, North Bay, and Timmins. But I'm going to talk about some comparisons between the Soo and Timmins. So the Soo is Sault Ste. Marie, Timmins is Timmins. When I was here being Sault Ste. Marie, it's very different here between here and Timmins. The main difference, I guess, is here we have a huge Italian population, but up in Timmins, it's very French. And I believe it was in the 90s that the Sioux actually outlawed French or French signs or something. That's more than 30 years ago, so I don't remember the details anymore. But there is not a very large French population here at all. When I was here, back in my youth, if we had poutine, or poutine, whatever you want to call it, which for the uninitiated is French fries with cheese curds and gravy. It's a delicacy and it's very delicious and heart attack central. But anyway, here in the Soo, everybody calls it poutine, and up in Timmins, everybody calls it poutine. And I guess it's a French creation because there's multiple ways to have it. If you have it with cheese curds, that's called Quebec style. And if you have it with shredded cheese, I guess that's regular style. I don't know, but it's not good with shredded cheese. It's always good with the cheese curds. So anyway, when I moved up to Timmins 19 years ago and I wanted to have one of these snacks, I would call it poutine. But everybody looked at me like I was crazy because all up there, it's a highly huge French population and everybody calls it poutine. So over the years, I began to call it poutine. But then 5.5 weeks ago, I moved back here, and everybody calls it poutine. The commercials call it poutine, and it's jarring to my ears now because I've been, I guess, Timmonized. So yeah, it's very weird. It's hard to explain. It's hard to describe. Is it culture shock? I don't know if that's the right way to describe it because this is where I'm from, but I've been gone for almost 20 years. So I still call it poutine. Brother Curtis and I have had a discussion about it. He's still going to call it poutine. I can't call it poutine because it just doesn't sound right anymore, even though that's what I used to call it 20 years ago. that's a weird thing that I'm going through right now. Another thing, the May long weekend, everywhere in the world that I know of at least calls it the May 2-4 weekend, because you get drunk on that weekend, and it's usually the 24th. Even if it doesn't take place on the 24th, it takes place around the 24th, and a 2-4 of beer is 24 beer, and you're going to take that for the weekend, so it's the May 2-4 weekend. But up in Timmins and its surrounding area, everybody calls it the May Run weekend. And for years and years when I was living up there, they would say May Run. And I'd say, you mean the May 2-4? And they're like, what? So even though the cities are only 5 to 6 hours apart, it's such a different culture. Here, everybody, of course, calls it May 2-4. And is it making me crazy? Not quite, but it's jarring me out, freaking me out. I don't know what you call it. Sometimes I want to call it the May Run. Sometimes I want to call it May 2-4. It's all very weird, and it's hard to get used to living back here. So there's that. What else we got? Okay, like I said, it's very Italian here and very French up there. People here are way more polite. So, for example, when I'm delivering the mail, lots of people will actually just say hi, but in Timmins, they didn't. So a big difference is they're more polite here. Lots of people are more. They tend to use their signal lights on their cars a lot more than people up in Timmins do. Timmins has a lot more vanity license plates, so that is another big difference as well. Everything's familiar yet different, and it's hard to reconcile these different experiences, because I'm from the Sioux, but I feel like I'm not. When I was in Timmins, I would talk about the Sioux. I would say back home in the Sioux, or just back home. But now that I'm here, when I'm talking about Timmins, I want to say back home in Timmins. So I don't know if I'm coming or going half the time. Am I going crazy? I don't know. It's just such a weird kind of a thing, because this is home and that's kind of home. It's what I've known for the last 19 plus years. But now I'm back here where I was born and raised. So this is home and that's home, and nowhere's really home. Maybe I should just move back to North Bay, because that's where I went to school, and that's where I had so much fun, and there was lots more culture. Like, for years, I called Timmins the land that culture forgot. And the Sioux has a bit more culture, I think. It's a larger place. But North Bay always feels very comforting, because that's where I had my formative years of going to school, and a little bit after that, because I stayed for a while. So that's different. The one thing I do like about the Sioux, of course, and North Bay is that they're right on lakes, and there's a huge boardwalk, and it's just so full of nature and everything. Now Timmins, of course, is in the bush, so there's lots of nature there too, but there's no real boardwalk per se. There's some little tiny lakes, but not like Lake Nipissing or Lake Superior like we have here. So it's just very different. And that's one thing I never liked about Timmins, is that you just can't walk around the boardwalk and that kind of thing. And there's not much shopping in Timmins. You'd go to Sudbury 3 hours away. That would be the big city for your shopping experiences. And here in the Sioux, Sudbury's also 3 hours away, but there's more shopping here. We have the border. We're the Twin Sioux. You just go across the river and you're in the United States of America. So we don't call it we're going to the America. We just call it going across the river. We're going across the river, and that means you're in a different country. And I haven't been there yet since I've been back. In fact, I haven't been to the States since before the pandemic, but I want to. I was just talking to my sister-in-law and my brother's wife, Kate. You've heard her on a previous episode or two of the podcast, and we were talking about chocolate milk, of all things. And she was saying that chocolate milk over in the U.S., I think she said it was 4%, and the milk here in Canada is 1%. And it's way more thick over there and more delicious and tasty. I was thinking to myself, and actually we had the conversation this afternoon, and I'm like, did Canada used to have thicker chocolate milk? And she's like, yeah. But then we decided to get all health conscious and stuff, and it has less fat in it, so it's not as thick. It's more watered down. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. because I was thinking chocolate milk used to taste so much better when I was a kid, and I didn't know if it had changed or if it's because I became an adult, and so chocolate milk isn't as delicious because I'm an adult. But no, it was just more delicious when I was a kid because it had more fat content in it. But you know what doesn't have fat content? This promo for another podcast right here on the ESO Network.
Comic-Cons are back and fans are ready. Hear all about it on The Con Guy Show, where we keep you up to date on all the events, the movies, the people, and the conventions that drive your passions and feed your fandom. Straight from the nerdy heart of Hollywood, California, we are proud members of the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Now, how was that for a transition? That was pretty good, right? I'm trying to be the master of transitions. Just ask my buddies over on the Cosmic Pizza podcast and the Epsilon 3 podcast. Those are two other podcasts that I host or co-host with my British buddies Paul and Dan. So if you're not listening to the Cosmic Pizza podcast, you should be, because it's all about general stuff that we talk about, like favorite movies of the decades, or the last one we recorded, I don't think it's out yet, but we had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toy collector on, and we talked to him for a bit. And the Epsilon 3 is our Babylon 5 rewatch podcast. So if you like sci-fi from the 90s, you'll like the Epsilon 3 podcast. So go check those out as well. Plus, whatever promo I played for the other podcast there on the ESO Network and all the other ESO Network shows. All right, so that's enough of that. What else do I want to talk about? Differences and stuff. Well, let's talk about my job, because there's a huge difference in the way that my job is. Like I said, I'm a mailman. In Timmins, what I would do is show up for 8 o'clock. I would have trays of mail sitting on my desk, and then I would sort them. And after all the mail was sorted in, then you tie it out. And what that basically means is you have a line of travel that you're going to follow to get rid of your mail. So you pull it out of the case, you bundle it up into elastics, and then you throw that into a bag. And you put a tag on it and put it onto a cart. Somebody from the contracting company takes those bags and puts them in those gray boxes that you see on street corners. And so you take your mail, you'd go out there. Either you would walk out and deliver your mail, or you would call a cab, and the cab would come, pick you up, and take you to your destination, and you would deliver the mail until you got to the next drop box and pick up more mail there, deliver that mail, go to the next drop box, and deliver all your mail till you're done. And then just before you were done, you would call your cab and wait for it to pick you up, and then it would pick you up and take you back to the post office. And then you would see if you had flyers to prepare for the next day, and if you didn't, then you go home. That was how it was in Timmins. Here in the Sioux, it's very, very different. It's similar, of course, because you're still delivering the mail, but the way they operate is a little bit not odd, I guess. It's different from what I'm used to. So what you do is you either show up for 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, depending on the week. Because of COVID protocols, they don't want everybody in the building at once. So this week, I come in at 8 o'clock. Next week, I'll be coming in at 9. The week after will be 8 o'clock. So I get there. What you do is you get to your desk. Now, at the end of your shift the previous day, you've already sorted in your mail that you're going to deliver that day because they're a day behind. So what's at your desk waiting for you, of course, is all your scannable parcels that you're going to deliver. So all your mail is sitting in the case, and now you're going to tag your parcels, which means you put a little flashy card in so you know which address these parcels go to. So you set that all up, then you tie out your mail, you put them into bags. You don't put them on a cart. Somebody comes along and takes your bag from the floor beside your desk. So then that's all done. You tie out, throw the bags on the floor, you go outside, and then you wait for the cab. You don't even call the cab like you do in Timmins. They just know to come. And sometimes they're there right away. Sometimes you have to wait 5 or 10 minutes. It just depends. So then you get to your location, you deliver your mail, you call a cab about 10 or 15 minutes before you know that you're going to be done your delivery. And then the cab comes, And then you go back to your office, and then you see what kind of flyers you have. You prep those, and you have a tray or 3 of mail that you put in your case for next day's delivery, and then you go home. So in Timmins, you sort the mail first. In the Sioux, you sort it last. So it's very different. The supervisors are, I think, a lot more friendly here in the Sioux, way more relaxed. So that's nice. So what do I have written down here? The mail system. So the flyers are different. Oh, the flyers. In Timmins, I had the best route in town. It had a unique postal code, so I got the least amount of flyers just because of the way it worked out. But here, it's non-stop flyers. I'm in what's called the Pea Patch, which is the central area of town, and I get bombarded. So I'm not liking all these flyers. So that's not good. So the cabs are different, the flyers are different, the sorting's different, the supervisors are different. Last week, what happened was I was sorting the mail at the end of my shift, and one of my coworkers, I think she works for the union, I'm not sure, but she was asking me how I was enjoying my route. So I told her the differences, like how in Timmins my route was flat and there were hardly any stairs up to the mailboxes, and I didn't get a lot of flyers. And she was like, oh, well, your route is a lot different, isn't it? I'm like, yes, because there's more hills, there's lots more flyers. And here in the Sioux, turns out that a lot of people have their mailboxes at the top of their stairs. And if there's one thing a mailman hates, it's stairs. So PSA for all you people out there, put your mailbox at the bottom of the stairs where it's easy to get to. The last thing a mailman needs to do is walk up the stairs constantly. It's annoying. So anyway, this lady said, well, it's not guaranteed, but there is a route that may be coming up within the next month, and it's in the top 5 best routes in town. It's way more flat, and it's not central. It's more in the east end, so there should be less flyers. So it's flat. They did a big campaign a few years ago where they asked all their customers to put the mailboxes at the bottom of the stairs. And on my route, not too many people did, but apparently over there, lots of people did. So if this route becomes available, she said I should bid for it. It's all based on seniority, and because I've been there 15 years, I have a pretty good chance of getting that route. So if it becomes available, I am jumping ship and getting off my route and possibly getting a better, flatter one. So that's what's going on there. So that is how the mail delivery system works, at least in the 2 places that I have lived and delivered the mail. So what else do we want to talk about? Let's see. I talked about chocolate milk, so that's that. Travel. What did I want to talk about travel for? Oh, that's what the sister-in-law was talking about. They're planning on a trip to Traverse City, which is in Michigan, and it's about 3.5 hours away, and apparently it's full of quaint little shops and all kinds of stuff, and I've always wanted to go there, and I never have. So being right on the border means the opportunity for travel is a lot better than being up in Timmins, because that's 6 hours from the border. So I plan to do a lot more traveling in the future, which is something I've always wanted to do. Yard sale season is coming up, and I'm planning on going this weekend to yard sailing, the first yard sales of the season, so that'll be fun. On the May Run weekend, or the May 2-4 weekend, or whatever I end up calling it, I'm going camping. Brother Curtis always goes camping with his buddies, and he's always asked me to go, and I've never been around, but now that I live with him, I can go. So recently I bought myself a tent and a sleeping bag, and a camp chair just the other day. And I've got some other supplies. And so I'm going to try this whole camping thing because it's something that I've wanted to get into for years. So that's what I'm going to do. And I imagine, the last thing I'm going to talk about is my adventures on TikTok. As many of you know, I don't know if I've ever actually mentioned it because I never really talked about it, but I was anti-TikTok for a long time. I thought it was something stupid. I never really looked at it, didn't know much about it. It just seemed ridiculous. But during the Easter weekend, Brother Robin said, sign up for TikTok. There's a special promotion where if I invite somebody, I get $25. And since he's always poor, I said, okay. And then I started looking at it, and now I'm addicted. I go down the rabbit hole of TikTok every day. Not every day, but most mornings I'll do a quick update from my route, and I'll say, hey, all you people, it's mail delivery day and whatever. Just little updates. And the one that I did about a week and a half ago, it's got 121,000 views, which is pretty crazy. Lots of comments, lots of likes. Most of mine only have 300 or 400, but it's fun. It's almost like a mini podcast, but you get more immediate feedback and more reaction, and you don't really have to edit anything. You just have to hashtag it, and people find it. So it's amusing, it's silly, it's addictive, it's fun. If you're not on TikTok, you totally should be, or at least, well, you don't have to be. But if you want to see my shenanigans, you can follow me there. I'm at Soulforge Podcast, because that seemed to be the easiest way to do it. And there's a link to my YouTube channel there, and I think, well, there's not a link, but Rusted Robot Toys on Etsy is in my bio. So if you want to buy some vintage toys, go to Rusted Robot Toys on Etsy. That's my shop. But check out my stupidity on TikTok. I do a lot of silly things, a lot of flirty things, a lot of mail updates. It's all very random and silly and fun, and that's really just about it. So anyways, go check out the Epsilon 3 podcast for your Babylon 5 fix. Check out Cosmic Pizza for random British-Canadian talk. What else? Check out TikTok. Check out Rusted Robot Toys on Etsy. And other than that, go get yourself a yummy Poutine, and take care of yourselves and each other, and leave a 5-star review in the podcatcher of your choice so other people can find out about this podcast. And until next time, remember, choose what's good for your soul, not your ego. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Soulforge Podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit soulforgepodcast.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Soulforge Podcast is your best source for living your best life.
Think about it.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.